Welcome back to the Pitch to Post preview podcast, where we're going to take a closer look at Arsenal's Super Sunday clash with Leeds United. And I'm pleased to say, joining me to look ahead to this one is Sky Sports pundit Alan Smith. Now, Alan, it looked like Arsenal were on the up, really, weren't they, with 5 wins out of 7 on that unbeaten run in the Premier League. But then they lost to Wolves and Aston Villa. So what's gone wrong?
I don't think a great deal has gone wrong, Pete. I mean, you look at that Wolves game for the first 47 minutes. I mean, in that first half at Molineux, they played some great stuff, hadn't they? They just hadn't been able to really put the match to bed. And then obviously a couple of sendings off, which has derailed them. Ended up losing that and went to Villa Park against a Villa team, I suppose, that was smarting after that West Ham home defeat. Always going to be a tough game. Obviously, they didn't play as well as they would have wanted to. Maybe the confidence has been knocked a little bit, but you know, you suffer these runs sometimes. They've got to bounce back and bounce back quickly. But for Arteta, yeah, I don't think he should be too concerned after what he'd seen from his players in that run previously.
Yeah, and we'll come on to Leeds shortly, but their win over Crystal Palace on Monday moved them above Arsenal on the table. So Arsenal down in 11th. Just 9 points off the top 4 now. Can they make that up? We're not sure. Yeah. But they're up to 10 defeats as well, which is the most they've had at this stage of a Premier League season. So what do you think the realistic target is for them in the league?
I mean, if they could clamber into a Europa League position, obviously that would be good. They've got a bit of work to do for that to happen. I think majorly, though, it's more about it. Preparing and improving for next season. You know, you've got these raft of younger lads in that senior setup. They're going to be learning all the time and learning what Arteta wants from them. So I think it's getting the group as a whole to be ready, to be better prepared to start next season in a positive way and a winning way, hopefully. You know, for the league position, yeah, if they can get into Europe, brilliant. Of course, they're still in the Europa League, so you know, a good run in that would go down the storm, and you know, who knows, maybe get to the final and attain a Champions League place if they win it. But yeah, I mean, obviously, you look at the league table, and it's not pleasant reading for Arsenal. But they've just got to, you know, each game just try and get some points and get up that table.
Yeah, I think 6 of the next 7 are against teams in the top half. So important period coming up as well with that tie with Benfica in the Europa League that you mentioned there. But this is the first time we've had you on the podcast since the transfer window closed. And obviously there was quite a bit of reshaping of Arteta's squad during that January window. Ozil, Klasinic, Socrates, Mustafi all went out. Saliba, Willock and Maitland-Niles went out on loan, didn't they? And we had Odegaard and Matt Ryan come in. So what do you make of how this squad is shaping up for Arteta? He's obviously making a lot of changes there and trying to get it how he wants.
Yeah, I think it was a successful window, actually, for Arteta. You know, he's cleared the decks of a lot of players that really weren't in his first thoughts in terms of picking a team each week. So I think financially as well, obviously, he's got a lot of players off the wage book. And that's going to be helpful going into the summer when he'll obviously want to add to the squad. The Ozil saga, thankfully, has come to an end, and that was a distraction. Although he's kind of got a similar one now with the likes of Willian and to a lesser extent Pepe on big money and not producing. And you're loath to leave people like that out. So that's another problem. But yeah, I think he's done well. You know, some of those players that you mentioned will come back, perhaps the likes of Maitland-Niles, Joe Willock, maybe. Others he'll be trying to sell and then bring more players in his image. You know, fashioning that squad in his image more.
Yeah, sure. You mentioned Pepe there. Of course, he was sent off when Arsenal played Leeds back in November. He scored a couple of goals, hasn't he, recently? But it's probably not what you still want from a player they paid so much money for. Do you think he can ever really become that player that Arsenal want him to be?
I don't know. I mean, you're right. He has been better with, I think, his attitude, his work ethic at times. And obviously, he's produced some moments of quality going forward. The thing I worry about him is he does tend to switch off when he loses the ball, when the team loses it.
Mm.
And that'll frustrate Arteta watching from the sideline. Sometimes he makes a little token run to close down, but you just don't feel his heart's in it. And I think if that's the case, the manager would have noted that, he'd have seen it, and that colours your opinion of a player, really. But he's got talent. There's no doubt about it. I don't think he's got 70 odd million worth of talent. Is what Arsenal paid for him, but that's not his fault, is it? That was a bad piece of business on Arsenal's part. Bad piece of bargaining, I should say, negotiating. But if they can get something out of him, great. It might be as the weeks, months go on, he's more of an impact substitute, because I think he has got that in his locker. Yeah, it's up to Arteta to try and work that out.
Yeah, obviously that's red card in November didn't cost Arsenal too much. They really sort of held out, didn't they, for a 0-0 in the end at Ellen Road. Well, Leeds hit the woodwork 3 times, if I remember. But Leeds so dangerous in attack that night, so dangerous in attack generally this season. We saw that again on Monday night against Crystal Palace, when they could have had more than their 2 goals they got in that win. As I said earlier, up to 10th. How impressive is that for a newly promoted side to be doing what they're doing and playing the way they're playing, I guess, more than anything in the Premier League?
Yeah, they've not compromised the principles one bit, have they? And even when they get thrashed, as they did at Old Trafford, Bielsa doesn't stray from his philosophy, and you've got to admire that. And I think that gives players confidence as well. I mean, you get thumped, and players are thinking, "Oh, what's he going to do now? Is he going to change things?" And then the fact he stays on that straight line, I think you would gain even more faith in the manager for that, especially when it produces results like they have been getting. I mean, it is a bit feast or famine at Leeds, but I think sometimes we judge them too harshly. When they do concede a lot of goals, we go, well, why aren't they tighter, blah, blah, blah. But it is what it is. And they are a newly promoted team, as you say, and to be in that mid-table position is a great achievement, given that, they haven't, that's mostly the team that got them promotion, isn't it? In fact, well, not entirely, but almost so. The likes of Rafinha have come in. But that they're not a team that anybody would enjoy lining up against. I think Frank Lampard said earlier this season, the challenge is a unique one in terms of the way that Leeds play. And you've got to prepare for that. You've got to be ready for it physically as much as anything. If you don't match them physically, if you don't run about and follow your man, you're going to be in trouble.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it, the way that people reflect on their wins or their defeats, because they have been great entertainers in the Premier League this season. But there was a stat I saw before this, which was against the traditional Big Six, if you like. They've scored 7 and conceded 17 in those games. And after a good win, we say, oh, this isn't fantastic, this brilliant football they're playing. But then, as you say, when they get beaten heavily, everyone's saying, well, why didn't they defend more? Why didn't they shut up shop? And it's they've got to decide, I guess, whether they want to play towards their opponents or just play themselves and see if that's good enough.
Yeah. I mean, listen, you mentioned the record against the Big Six as the reason that they are the Big Six. They're the better sides. And if you lose to them, it's no shame as a newly promoted team. But as I said, the players haven't lost faith in the manager. That's for certain. You can't run about to that extent and not really believe in what the manager's asking you to do. You've got to be on board with those tactics. So, they look like a tight-knit group, and that win against Crystal Palace would have done them a lot of good going into the Arsenal game. They'll feel that, they definitely should have won that match against the Gunners at Ellen Road, and they'll be hoping to get something at the Emirates. And I think Patrick Bamford said, actually, that they prefer playing away from home at the moment because the pitch at Ellen Road, the newly laid pitch, is a little bit dodgy, a bit soft underfoot, people losing the footing, so they might be pleased to get on the Emirates carpet.
Yeah, that's it. He said he put his rugby studs in at half-time, didn't he?
That's it. Yeah.
Just what your thoughts on him then, Alan, as a former striker yourself. He had a quite bad miss in the first half, but come back and got his goal, and that's 12th in the Premier League this season. He's obviously a player who Bielsa likes. He obviously plays the way that Bielsa wants his striker to play. 27 years old now. And there was some talk after that game about whether he might be in the reckoning for an England spot this summer. Obviously, we've got some good options up there now for Southgate. What do you think? Is he at that level? Can he be at that level by the summer?
I'm not sure. I mean, he's got a bit of work to do. He's got people ahead of him, hasn't he? I mean, obviously Harry Kane's number 1 and Calvert-Lewin's in there, Danny Ings, Tammy Abraham's played, Callum Wilson's played. So I admire Patrick Bamford because he has been criticised in the past, and his finishing hasn't been as sharp as it might be. But you can't argue with that goal tally. You can't argue with it. He keeps putting himself in those positions. I like him as a person as well. He's a well-rounded character, and the fact that Bielsa has stuck with him shows you what he thinks of the player, what he does apart from his goal scoring. So it's great to see him doing well. It really is. It's been quite a long journey for him, with a lot of people casting doubts on his ability to do well at the top. So, as a fellow centre forward, I'm really pleased for him.
Yeah, absolutely. So this game on Sunday, Alan, what's the key areas? How's it going to play out? What should we be looking out for on Sunday in terms of the key factors which will decide this one?
Well, I said Arsenal have got to match the endeavour, the sheer energy of Leeds. If they don't do that, they're going to be chasing the game. But if they can do that, they've got more quality, haven't they? They've got more quality. You can't argue with that. If they get the players on the ball, the likes of Saka, Smith Rowe, we're hoping that Aubameyang can find his old form pretty soon. He's had a rough time on and off the pitch, but there's enough players there. Martinelli, I think, would be champing at the bit. He didn't get on against Aston Villa. Arteta put Willian on instead, which a lot of Arsenal fans I know weren't too happy with. So there's choices there for him, and there's players playing well despite those last two defeats. So they've got to match Leeds, who will be going to London feeling they can get a result. And why wouldn't you? I think it's, as with all Leeds games, it's going to be an enjoyable one to watch. They're never boring, are they? Whichever way the match goes. So it's going to be fascinating. But for Arsenal, it's a big game. They need to bounce back.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we'll see if Arsenal can get back on track after those two defeats on Sunday. Obviously, when they host Leeds, live on Sky Sports at 4:30. Thanks for coming onto the podcast, Alan.
Cheers, Pete. All the best, mate.